مدخله وجاف الأرض عن جنبيه. اللهم إن كان محسنا فزد في إحسانه، وإن كان مسيئا فتجاوز عن سيئاته. اللهم اغسله بالماء والثلج والبرد، ونقه من الذنوب والخطايا والآثام كما ينقى الثوب الأبيض من الدنس. اللهم اجعل مأواه الجنة ولا تجعل مأواه النار. اللهم اجعل مأواه الجنة ولا تجعل مأواه النار. اللهم ابدله دارا خيرا من داره، وأهلا خيرا من أهله، وجيرانا خيرا من جيرانه، وارزق أهله الصبر والسلوان، واجمعهم به في جناتك جنات النعيم يا أرحم الراحمين. آمين آمين. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. Amma ba'd, before I pass it over to Akhi Ibrahim, I also want to apologize for the low pitch. I'm used to having high pitch, loud sound, but today the voice is limited. So may Allah put barakah and accept, inshallah. So I'm going to pass it over to Akhi Ibrahim to start us off, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Barakallah feek, Shaykhna, and barakallah feekum for coming tonight. As always, we have the Slido QR code, so you can scan that QR code. You'll be able to ask any questions. Today's conversation is going to be about the Ramadan. So we'll introduce Ramadan. We'll talk about a few topics, and then we'll get into any questions that anyone has. There are Ramadan booklets that are on the tables. So this will give you the schedule, inshallah, for ICPC, Patterson, Clifton, and Prospect Park. All of the masajid, what our program is going to be looking like throughout all 30 days of Ramadan, inshallah. What topics we have, what Taraweeh program we have, what i'tikaf programs we have, and all the lectures and everything in between. So if you see this, you can pick it up, you can grab it, you can follow through it, inshallah, for the rest of the month. It'll also tell you, I believe, iftar times and things of that nature, and the salat times. Now, you may notice if you have the WhatsApp chat, we sent a PDF. This is the Fiqh of Ramadan. Shaykh Osamah has taught it here before. He's actually going to be teaching it Ramadan at Dar al-Islah this Ramadan, inshallah. But you can refer to it if you have any questions or any specific topics. It discusses the fiqh, it discusses the halals and harams, what is permissible, what is not permissible in Ramadan, and it'll discuss some spiritual aspects and spiritual topics. Why do we fast? What is Ramadan? Where does it come from? And we'll sprinkle that in the beginning, inshallah, just to set the stage before we start asking any questions. Before we get into it, we have refreshments on either sides. As usual, please keep all side conversations outside of the main musalla. Please keep children contained outside of the main musalla. Please and thank you. As for announcements, we have two events. The first is tomorrow with Sister Noor Salim, Sunnah of Health, Preparing for a Healthy Ramadan. That'll be here in ICPC-Clifton. Saturday, tomorrow, March 11th, 8 p.m. inshallah. And then we also have our monthly hiking trip with Ammu Fikri on this Sunday, inshallah, 10:30 a.m. I believe the carpooling will come out of here, ICPC-Clifton at 10 a.m., or you could meet everyone there at Hemlock Falls. That's in West Orange, Hemlock Falls. If you're interested, you can refer to the Facebook page or on Instagram or on the emails that come out every week, inshallah. So with that said, I think we should set the stage. If you could introduce, Ramadan to us, get us in the mood. What does Ramadan mean? What does it mean to us? What does it mean, literally? How would you like to start?
There is just one thing I did want to emphasize. We do have one more Friday forum, next Friday before Ramadan. But by the way, if you're not familiar with our annual Ramadan programming, we don't stop in Ramadan giving the talks. We're just going to change the timing. So the feature that we have in the masjid in Ramadan is our i'tikafs. We have midnight talks. We have Friday night midnight talk, and then we have a Saturday night midnight talk, and then we'll have some, guests with us. We'll have Sheikh Yasir sometimes, bi'idhnillah, and we'll also have Ustaz Zaid, and maybe perhaps others, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, to join us. But basically, the Friday forum is going to continue with a special Ramadan edition instead of at this time at midnight, inshallah. So I did want to just mention that. Also, because of the time change, you guys know the time changes this Sunday, right? So next Friday forum, we're going to still keep it after Isha. So we're going to keep it after Isha. That's it. We got to get used to the late times. Everything is going to get later now anyway. So next week, Isha is going to be like around 8:25 or something. So we'll pray Isha and then we'll start the Friday forum after that, bi'idhnillah. So I guess I just wanted to emphasize that. And get one of these booklets. They're very colorful. So you want me to start?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't have the information.
So basically what the idea was, as Akhi Ibrahim mentioned, we shared with you guys a booklet in the WhatsApp group. If you're not on the WhatsApp group, you could join it. Just ask one of the volunteers and they'll help you with that. But the booklet basically is 14 pages. It's just a basic rundown, as Akhi Ibrahim said. You can take a look at it as we're talking in this session tonight. And if something doesn't make sense to you, you could ask questions. Basically, this is meant to be a Ramadan AMA. What about Ramadan isn't clear to you? What questions do you have? If we could try to center the questions around Ramadan, that would be great, because I guess everyone right now should be trying to get into the Ramadan mindset. How could I really capitalize on this month and benefit from it the fullest? What attitude do I need to go into Ramadan with to really be able to get the full experience? We've mentioned there's been a bunch of khutab, and every year there is, about different aspects about Ramadan. Today I spoke about Ramadan and the gift of patience. Last week I spoke about the Prophet's Ramadan and what that means in terms of really affecting change in our lives on many different levels. And and what goes into that is understanding what Ramadan means and what Siyam means and what they're supposed to do to me as a person. So for example, Akhi Ibrahim, with Siyam, we went over a few of its linguistic meanings. Siyam, which is translated as fasting, in one sense means to give peace. صامت الريح إذا سكنت. Ramadan gives a sense of peace. It also refers to restraint. صام عن الكلام. He withheld engaging in speech. صام عن الكلام. That's a linguistic meaning. So it refers to restraint. And in another sense, fasting also emphasizes that meaning of going back to Allah Azza wa Jal. When we say صامت الخيل إذا توقفت عن ركضها, the horses did siyam, meaning they just paused in their violent, in their motion. It's as though the nafs stops and halts its aggressions against the boundaries of Allah Azza wa Jal in Ramadan. So there's a lot of meanings there to think about. What Ramadan should do to me as a person in terms of my speech. The Prophet ﷺ teaches us that fasting is a protection, a siyamu junnah. Protection from what? Protection of me from me. It's a protection of me from me. That's what Ramadan is all about. Protecting me from vice and the damage that vice could do to my life. Vice and sin and shahwa and desire and just allowing things to run wild. So, those are some meanings. There's a lot more to add to that. So what I'm hoping this discussion would be is partially philosophical and spiritual and partially legal, because we need to make sure that our procedural aspect towards Ramadan is proper. So that's what I would start with. Wallahu alam.
Barakallah feek, Shaykhna. Very beautiful setup here. I only see a few questions coming in, so if you have any questions, whatever they may be, fiqhi, legal in matter, or something more spiritual, how do I get the best out of my Ramadan? Am I allowed to do this? Am I not allowed to do that? Any questions at all, please ask them, because that'll gauge how we formulate this conversation, because it is a forum, it is a conversation. But to get that started, alhamdulillah, we still have a little bit of time left before Ramadan. And many of us, in years past and years to come, we kind of just stumble into Ramadan. And we may realize that our hearts are still a little bit rigid, still a little bit cold, and they need time to warm up. And they need time to enjoy that taraweeh and i'tikaf. And then by the end, by the last 10, maybe we're ready. How do we prepare ourselves so that we're ready from the first week? Are there things that we can do now in this coming, week and a half, 2 weeks, so that we can really kickstart ourselves into Ramadan?
Yeah, absolutely. There's things, well, right now, effectively, we have a little bit less than 2 weeks left, which is nothing. Our Salaf would start preparing for Ramadan from the beginning of Rajab. So you have Rajab, Sha'ban, 2 full months, and then Ramadan comes. So, there isn't much time, but one of the things that could critically help is just developing that attitude and mindset. And that's what I was talking about in the beginning of this. Because look, everyone fasts, but not all fasts are the same. They're really not. If I really want to get the most out of my Islam, how much am I really willing to invest in it? One of the things I said to Akhi Ibrahim today in the khutbah was, we know i'tikaf, right? When does i'tikaf happen? When does i'tikaf happen? The official sunnah of it is in the last 10 of Ramadan, right? What does i'tikaf mean? It comes from al-ukuf ala shay'. It comes to be in a state of utter focus upon one thing. And for the Prophet ﷺ, that was Allah and devotion to Allah. Now, as I'm going into this Ramadan, I should be searching for something. What am I searching for? What do I want to fix about me and myself and I? About my life? What circumstance and dynamic do I want to change? Only a proud or blind person would say, I'm all good. My life's great. There's nothing to improve. Akhir tamam. There's no improvements that could be made. I am the best version of what it means to be a human being. No one could say that. Every one of us has certain things that are bothering them about their dynamic. What are you searching for? Maybe I need to have a new attitude towards i'tikaf. All right, we know the official i'tikaf. But for me, Ramadan altogether should be a state of i'tikaf. Searching for what solutions will really change my life. Because again, the way I see Ramadan as, hey, you know what? It's a time to look under the hood. That's another expression I used in the khutbah today. You look under the hood, what are you going to see? You're going to see engine problems? You're going to see transmission failure? Or are you going to see some light things like you need to change some belts and add some coolant? What are you going to see? When you lift the hood, how does Ramadan help me lift the hood? You guys understand what I mean by that? I'm focusing on the soul. Now I'm going to have a clear look at who I am as a person. Allah makes this dynamic, brothers and sisters. Allah is telling you and I, hey, you know what? Shaitan aside. Shaitan's not going to get to you in this month. Anything you see happening is coming from you and your nafs. You're going to see your nafs for what it is. I'm going to open for you the doors of Jannah and seal the doors to hellfire. I'm going to multiply the rewards of every act of goodness you do. Allah Azza wa Jalla is giving us a golden opportunity. Take a look at your soul. What's going on there? Is it diseases of the heart? Is it anger issues? Bad assumption? Is it a sense of arrogance? Or is it a sense of humble submission? Or is it a sense of trust in Allah? Or is it a sense of patience? That's another thing that we spoke about in the khutbah. Let me re-envision what it means to be patient. When someone asks you to be patient, what comes to your mind? Many of the people think patience is dealing with your situation. Learn how to deal with it. But actuality, that's not what patience truly is. Patience is not just dealing with it. Because if that was the case, do you need to be Muslim to be someone who's patient? No. Tons of non-Muslims are way more patient than Muslims that you may know. Yeah, that's the case. But what does it mean to have true patience? It means not just to deal with it. It means to grow through it. It means to develop urgency. It means to develop devotion. It means to actually connect what's going on in your life to a bigger mission. That's what comes to my mind, Akhi Ibrahim. As I'm going into Ramadan, the best thing you could do right now is to develop a mindset towards worship that's meaningful. Because you know what? The Prophet ﷺ already tells us, tons of people are going to fast and only get hunger. Tons of people are going to stay awake for long hours and only get exhaustion. And that's a real awful deal, man. If we're all going to do the same thing, but someone might walk away with nothing in return, I pray that's not us. What the Prophet's teaching us to do is, hey, you know what? Worship mindfully. Actually find change in your life through worshiping Allah. That's what I would say is the best thing to do right now. How can I really experience something special in my worship?
Barakallahu feek. Now you mentioned the looking under the hood. It's a beautiful analogy there. But how do I do it practically? You know, how do I focus on this? I know you're touching on introspection, you're touching on self-awareness, and it's something we've talked about in previous, Friday forums. How do I practically, start knowing myself, hearing myself? Because we know, the ulama were able to, tune their hearts and tune their spirits so well that they would pinpoint a specific sin that caused them to lose, their hifz. شكوت إلى معلمي سوء حفظي. I probably got that wrong, but you get the gist. Where he knew that because he did this, he felt it in his heart.
Jazakallah khair.
How do I get there, or at least get close to that, or work towards that?
Very good. How do I get there? Let me start sitting with myself. Let me start that. For some people, that's just an awkward thing to do. I don't mean sit with this guy right here. No, I don't mean sit with the TV or your laptop or whatever it is that you have. Sit with yourself. Flashlights on. All right, sit with yourself. What does it mean to sit with yourself? That's part of the Prophet's Ramadan. Part of the Prophet's Ramadan sallallahu alaihi wasallam is to sit with yourself in reflection. Let me try that. Let me do it every single night. Let me make part of the time I spend every single night in Ramadan a little bit of alone time with dhikr and fikr. With dhikr, remembrance of Allah Azza wa Jal, and I know it's copyrighted.
It's a promo.
With dhikr, with remembrance of Allah Azza wa Jal, and fikr, reflection on my life and circumstance. Wallahi, there's no better way to grow than to combine between these two. And this is what Allah tells us before anyone else tells us in the Quran. الذين يذكرون الله قياما وقعودا وعلى جنوبهم ويتفكرون. This is Allah's guidance. Remembrance coupled with reflection. Part of the Prophet ﷺ's Ramadan is also, you know what, let me change behavior. I know that, can we have this door closed over here, please? Jazakumullah khair. I know that it's very exciting, I guess, to go to a diner at like 4 a.m. with friends and just have suhoor and stuff. I know it's really exciting to do that. But you know what? And I know it's exciting to make like qatayif and all the other Ramadan sweets. What is it? Kanafa, basbousa, and I don't know the Desi sweets names, so if you're Desi, please forgive me. Maybe I could ask Brother Basir. I know that it's fun to do those things and invite people over and just have a lot of fun, and just have a lot of azayim, right? It's one of the Ramadan features. Let me have like a bazillion and one different types of things on the dinner table, and let's just eat. Because that's what Ramadan is about, right? Eating, right? So I know that's a lot of fun, but you know what? Maybe let me try something different. Let me try a simpler approach this Ramadan. Maybe let me try an approach that gives me an opportunity to actually reflect to actually grow. Because what happens with the high volumes of visits, when you got like 30 days in the month and 15 of them are going over this house and bringing people over this house and going over here and going over there and going to iftar there, what happens? We have no time to think, no time to really focus on the soul. And then when it comes to the last 10, right? Yeah, I'll go to the midnight talk, but then like 75% of the people disappear when it comes to do the actual worship, right? Actual worship. Once the talk's done, now I could go to hang out at 1, 2, 3 a.m. and just chill. This is the last 10 nights of Ramadan, and that's how it's spent. You know what? Maybe I need to try something different this Ramadan. Maybe I need to speak less. That's one thing the Prophet ﷺ did. During Ramadan, he would talk less. Many people, a lot of their problems would be solved if they spoke less. Really. Prophet ﷺ said to us, when you're fasting, someone curses you, someone does something to you, you could choose to get angry and fight back, but the better thing would be to do is say, إِنِّ امْرُؤٌ صَائِمٌ صُمْتُ عَنِ الْكَلَامِ. Right? Maybe talking less would help my soul. Maybe eating less would help my soul too. Maybe getting distracted less with a lot of things would also help my soul as well. That's what Ramadan's about. That's the Ramadan attitude. I think that's how you could really prepare yourself for a meaningful Ramadan. Allah.
Barakallahu feek. Now, one level down into the tactical, we have a few questions coming in about people.
Now, don't go tell your parents that Shaykh Osamah said that I don't have to go to any azayim for the whole month of Ramadan. It's none of my business, right? You deal with that with your parents. But if you could try to advise your parents, hey, you know what, maybe it's better that we do a little bit less of this and a little bit more of something else, maybe a good idea.
Well said.
Wallahu a'lam. Sorry.
No problem at all. I think it's very easy to get distracted with those things, as you mentioned. It's very easy to feel that energy, that bringing people together, bringing the families together, and those
And
are
that's a beautiful
things,
thing.
Correct?
They're beautiful
Correct.
things, absolutely.
But at the same time, we can take that and let's take it to the masjid. We can have an iftar and maybe we'll go back to the masjid.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And there is time for both. With of course there's only 30 days, an entire year, so it's important to keep that into perspective. Now we have a few questions coming in about people wondering how they can balance their life, their normal life, their work. Maybe they work very long hours, or maybe they're studying in a master's program. How do we balance that with exams, with late nights, and then coming to Taraweeh, and I have an exam in the morning, and I can't eat? How do I balance all of these things?
Look, I totally get that. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help anyone who has a lot to deal with in terms of the things that they have to take care of for their dunya during Ramadan. I think that balance is important. I'm not ever suggesting that you should completely put your dunya on hold and your worldly affairs on hold during the blessed month of Ramadan. But everything with moderation. And you know what? Whenever sacrifice is had for the sake of Allah, I'm very hopeful that Allah Azza wa Jal would assist and support someone who makes those sacrifices for a good cause. So I think balance is important. I need to take some time to study if I have exams coming up. That's obvious. I need to take some time to take care of family responsibilities. I don't think for a second that a mom at home taking care of her children, cooking iftar for her family, is any less rewarding in the blessed month of Ramadan. No, not at all. That dynamic definition of what ibadah is something that should register with us. Ibadah is not just to pray and fast and read Quran and make dua. That's not what ibadah is, not at all. Did something change in the sound? Something changed? Maybe it's you? Okay. Maybe it is you, I guess. All right, so that dynamic sense of ibadah is something critical, brothers and sisters. What are we looking for in Ramadan? There are a lot of different aspects to this. Is the social aspect something beautiful in the month? Absolutely. Absolutely. Having that sense of bond between family and community is critical. That's why you shouldn't misunderstand for a second that those things aren't part of Ramadan. They are part of Ramadan. But again, I need to do a clear balancing act between a bunch of different responsibilities and see exactly what I should take all those responsibilities back to. That's the soul, right? When I have a azuma, it could be done just because of ritual, or it could be done in a way that's lillah. And if it's lillah, then you know what, even the things that we talk about in the azuma means like a invitation, is going to be different. The things we do in the azuma is also going to be different when I make it for Allah. Same thing with my school. If I make it for Allah, then the way I study and the times I study and the things I incorporate in my study is also going to be custom tailored to that, to that inward focus. You could probably find yourself way more productive in your study in Ramadan than outside of Ramadan, because you don't have the distractions of the nafs. But it all takes intentionality. All of those, brothers and sisters, please understand this about Ramadan. Ramadan is a diverse set of worship. It's not just fasting and praying, even though those are features of the month. But it also is the family values. It also is the work. Don't forget that some of the historical battles in the history of Islam happened during Ramadan. For the companions, for our Salaf, Ramadan wasn't a month of laziness and sleep. It wasn't. It was actually it was a month of vibrancy, energy, strength. So maybe that should be the perspective. So basically what I'm trying to say is, don't find a way out of your responsibilities to Ramadan because you have a test. I get this too many times. Someone says, all right, if I fast, I'm going to do bad on my test. I don't want to fast because, this test is critical and it's going to affect my future. You know what? Maybe your attitude is the problem. Maybe you limiting yourself and saying, I can't do this is the problem. Because the companions, they were able to do great things while they fasted. Maybe it's an issue of mind over matter. Wallahu alam. So what components go into Ramadan? There's a social aspect. There's a spiritual aspect. There's also those responsibility aspects. The Prophet ﷺ, the companions didn't just shut down and stop functioning because it was Ramadan. No, they still fulfilled those responsibilities. Wallahu alam.
Barakallahu feek, Shaykhna. And just something that comes to mind also, it does get a lot easier when everyone around you is doing it as well. When you try to think of when you try to do a nafil a Monday or a Thursday, it's much more difficult. But once you're in Ramadan and everyone is fasting and everyone is with you and you can talk to your friends and talk to your family about it, and just from the barakah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does make it easier.
Absolutely.
So also having that positive attitude and seeing everything as a ibadah, seeing my school as a ibadah, seeing my fast as a ibadah, seeing that the struggle gives me more ajr.
Absolutely.
And everything is muda'af in Ramadan.
Hey, you know what? There's different types of Ramadan experiences, and each of them, you really can't compare which one's the most rewarding. We have something called ibadatul waqt. I mentioned this in a khatira recently. Allah may put you in a certain position, and the most rewarding thing for you to do is to fulfill that position with excellence and devotion. The Ramadan experience of a mom is not like the Ramadan experience of a single person. The Ramadan experience of someone younger is not like the Ramadan experience of someone older. The Ramadan experience of someone who could fast is not like the Ramadan experience of someone who's chronically ill. And there's many people that they wish they could fast, and they feel like they don't have a Ramadan experience because they can't, because of situations out of their hand. But my advice to them is, don't think like that. Don't think that your Ramadan is any less because you can't fast. Because
Allah tested you with certain health conditions that stop you from fasting. No. You're going to have a special Ramadan experience and you're still part of the process. Different types of Ramadans. Wallahu a'lam.
I also think a lot of people get worried, and a lot of us worry about doing the most immediately, and getting very anxious and very worried that we aren't. So the first night comes, I have to do qiyam, and the next night I have to read 3 ajza, and the next night, and so on and so forth, and we get very afraid or very anxious. And maybe after a week of what we think is failure, we may just say, oh, well, I guess I'll just fast and, maybe do some tarawih, and that's it, because I just can't keep up. But I think, maybe we could speak to the ayah of لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها, where someone who has to wake up at 6 a.m. has different time and different ibadat than the person who may not be working or the person who's enjoying some time off.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And, I think the general rule of thumb that we say is, we usually say quality over quantity. A quality ibadah experience is more effective than one that lacks quality but has a lot of quantity. However, Ramadan usually brings along with it quantity, and quantity hopefully should lead to quality at a certain point in the month. And that's why the Ramadan experience is a little different. It's not about going slow, but at the same time, not everyone could do that the same. So if you're limited in what you could do, then maybe doing the things that are more impactful to you are what you should do most with your time. Tafakkur, khushu', those things that tap into your heart may be more worthwhile for someone who has limited time. Hey, if you could do the quantity and the quality, that's best. Allahu Akbar. ذَلِكَ فَضْلُ اللَّهِ يُؤْتِيهِ مَن يَشَاءُ. But if you can't, and you could read less, but with much more reflection, that's going to be better for you than reading more with absolutely no reflection. Wallahu a'lam.
Shifting into some of the fiqh questions that we have here, because we have a few coming in, we'll do like maybe a lightning round, and then we can get into some bigger questions. I have not seen a hadith or ayah in the Quran that prohibits women from fasting during menstruation, so I would like to understand why it is not prohibited, or why it is prohibited, sorry.
So what was the question? You have not seen an ayah in the Quran?
Or hadith.
Actually, there are a hadith about it. And there's maybe perhaps in a later question, I can get you the hadith when I get a moment to read it for you. But this is actually something that is mujma' alayh. I know you might find some people who say otherwise, but those opinions are shadh opinions. During the monthly cycle, as Sayyidah Aisha actually says, we were told to do qada of fasting, not of salah. Now, why would they be told to do qada of fasting if the standard is that we have one standard? If you're someone who could fast, then you must. Right? The standard is, if you're someone who's in Ramadan and you could fast, then you must. Unless Allah singles out an exception. What exceptions do we have? The traveler. We know the traveler is an exception. He doesn't have to fast. But if you can't fast, then you're excused. And Allah singles them out too. The chronically ill. Those who have marad muzmin. And they will never be able to fast. Those people are excused. So the standard is, if you could fast, then you must, unless Allah makes an exception. And for the ha'id, she says, we were commanded to do qada. That means that they could not do ada. They could not do it when they were in the monthly cycle, or else what merit would be to single them out and say you must do qada? So in terms of our tradition, there's no difference of opinion that during the monthly cycle, the woman is excused from fasting and she cannot fast. So this is actually Allah's mercy with her. with women to facilitate their affairs, that they're able to get their biological issues in order before they're expected to fast again.
Barakallah feek. And since I know this is a question that comes up a lot, what ibadat are women allowed to do during that time in Ramadan? I know a lot of women struggle with feeling like they're missing out on certain days, or it may come in the last 10 days. What are the allowed, ibadat? Can they read off of their phones since it doesn't count as a mushaf? What are the things that they're allowed to do? Can they come to the i'tikaf and listen to the lectures? Can they participate in tasabih? What are the things that they can do so that they do not feel like, well, I can't do anything now?
Oh, there's plenty to do. Like we were talking about ibadat al-fikr just now. Ibadat al-fikr is something that is just so vast in nature. Reflection is something that everyone could do at any time without restriction. And along with that, dhikr as well, the adhkar. And this is an ocean of opportunity for people to, dua is an ocean of opportunity. There's nothing at all to withhold from this, and especially in this day and age, when we have so much out there constantly being streamed through different avenues, so much to listen to, so much to learn, so I think that, actually what they're barred from during that state is very minimal. Even when it comes to reading Quran, it could be read not aloud, but it could be read to oneself internally with one's eyes. That could be done by agreement. Even in terms of recitation out loud, there's a difference of opinion. The Maliki school allows a woman in her monthly cycle to recite aloud if she is a teacher or a student in that teaching setting. Then that's allowed for someone in her for a woman in her monthly cycle. Wallahu alam. So really, what's left? Just salah and siyam. And again, this is for a divine wisdom and purpose. This is not to actually prohibit. So that's where the question starts off. But actually, the maqsood of the shara is lost, or the intent of Allah is lost when the first thing you see is prohibition. Actually, what you should see first and foremost is Allah's mercy. That Allah Azza wa Jal is actually alleviating difficulty. And we see this from the others. With someone who's, with the other people who are excused from fasting, we're not looking at it through a prohibitive lens. This is Allah Azza wa Jal. When the Prophet ﷺ saw a man fasting while he was traveling, and he told him, لَيْسَ مِنَ الْبِرِّ الصِّيَامُ فِي السَّفَرِ. It's not of benevolence to fast while traveling. Was that Allah Azza wa Jal or the Prophet ﷺ being prohibitive? No, it was out of mercy. So that's I think the philosophy of Islamic law and Allah's words and the wisdom behind His words in this regard. It's one of mercy, not a one of prohibition. Wallahu alam. Allah, I think I got it.
No problem. So the next question is, does cursing break your fast?
Does cursing break your fast? Now, look, when it comes to fasting, all right, so when it comes to fasting, we have different types of fasts. We have 3 types of fasts. One of them is Sawmul Amma. This is the general type of fast. And that is to abstain from eating, drinking, and anything else that would invalidate fast. This is something done by the general populace. Then we have Sawmul Khassa. And this is a fasting that involves avoiding sin altogether. I'm going to fast from sinfulness. That's another perspective on fasting. I'm not going to sin in this month. Cursing, lying, cheating. Other types of haram. If I break my fast on marijuana, what great thing did the fast do to change me as a person? Right? If I break my fast on something that is haram and something that's displeasing to Allah Azza wa Jal, then I really haven't learned from the fast. And then the third type of fast is Somu Khassat al Khassa. This breakdown is by Imam al Ghazali. And he says that this third category is to fast on anything other than Allah. That I'm not going to allow myself to get distracted by anything else, all others. And of course, it's very difficult to attain. But anyway, to answer this question, will it invalidate your fast in the sense that you need to fast again? No. Will it decrease your reward? Of course. Of course. Just as not focusing in salah is going to decrease your reward. You're not going to get the same reward as someone who did it the best way. Of course not. So it's not gonna invalidate it, but you may lose a lot of reward for doing such things while you're fasting. Allahu
Barakallahu feek. The next question is, are vitamin shots permissible while fasting, even if this is required, given to me by a doctor?
So the Prophet, the hadith that I was talking about, in a hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he clarified a certain reality about circumstances that females go through. And he said in that hadith, and this hadith is authentic in Bukhari, I believe, he said, أَلَيْسَ إِذَا حَاضَتْ لَمْ تُصَلِّ وَلَمْ تَصُمْ. Isn't it that when she gets into her monthly cycle, she doesn't fast and she doesn't pray? So then they responded to that. The Prophet ﷺ clarified those realities about women. So he singled out these two worships and he negated that someone in that condition would do it. So, and there's other hadiths besides this one. So that whole claim about it not being in the Quran and Sunnah, with all due regard, is bogus. Go ahead.
Barakallahu feek. There's two similar sort of questions regarding, medicine given by doctors. One is, are vitamin shots permissible while fasting if this is required to me by a doctor? Now, I'm not sure if they mean actual like muscular shots or like the Trader Joe's ginger shots. I'm not sure. You've ever had the cayenne shots from Whole Foods?
Would someone actually? I don't think that someone would. All right, so look, actually I had someone ask me recently if they take medicine through their mouth, pills while they're fasting, does it break their fast? The answer to this is, of course, if you put anything in your mouth and swallow it, it's going to break your fast. That's without a doubt. Okay? Of course, that's going to be the case. Now, what if it's introduced to your body through other means? Now, we have the shot, right? Or we have something that's introduced through a needle, something that's introduced intravenously through your veins. Would that break your fast? We have two approaches by the scholars in this regard. One, and you'll find this in that booklet that's in the WhatsApp group, one says it will not break your fast regardless of what it is. You know why? Because it's being introduced to your body not through an open passageway. What's an open passageway? Your mouth is an open passageway. Your nose is an open passageway. And then they differ about the ear. There's a difference of opinion about the ear, about whether it's an open passageway or not. And most of them say about the eye that it's not an open passageway, so it will not break unless you actually feel something in your throat. But so anyway, what about the shot? It's not gonna break your fast according to this opinion, regardless of what it contains. There's another opinion that says it like this: if it's something that nourishes your body, that has the same effect as food, like what? The IV, the glucose, right? Insulin. If it has insulin, like for people with diabetes, if you do that while you're fasting, then it will break your fast. Otherwise, if it's something else that doesn't nourish your body like food, then it won't break your fast. So that's the scale. If it's like glucose, if it's medicine, like if it's some other type of medicine, and I think vitamins would probably be like that under other types of medicine, and it doesn't have the same effect as food. What do you mean by nourish the body? All right. How many of you, when you fast, you get really weak and you just feel like you can't run around or function? Raise your hand, right? A bunch of people are like that. What happens when iftar comes and you have this big steak in front of you and you take a bite of it? What does it do to your body? Now, all of a sudden, all that exhaustion is gone and you could run around. Unless you start getting stomach problems and bloating, and some people have those issues. May Allah help everyone who's going through different struggles. But anyway, the whole point here is food does that. It gives you energy. Or like a cup of coffee or tea or something like that. It's going to give you energy. So if glucose would do the same thing, right? You're about to faint, you're weak. If they give you the IV, it's going to give you energy. And you're going to get up and be able to function. You're going to be able to be, that it does the same thing that food does, right? So they say that would break your fast, but anything else would not break your fast. Like if someone had to take like an allergy shot, or if someone had to donate blood, or if someone had to take some other type of shot, for anything else, like say if you go to the dentist or something like that to numb your gums, as long as you don't swallow something, it technically won't break your fast, right? So those are all different. That's how you break down the different types of shot. So these are the two approaches. So now what does someone do? Someone has diabetes and they have to take insulin regularly. What do? If they can't regulate it around iftar and suhoor time, then what should they do? According to the opinion that says it's going to break your fast, then you're chronically ill. And in other words, you can't fast. So instead of fasting, what are you going to do? You're going to give fidya, which is about $10 for every day you can't fast. But if you want to follow the other opinion and say, you know what, no, I want to fast, there are two valid opinions among the scholars, and it's okay if you follow either. Wallahu alam.
Barakallahu feek. That was the second question about insulin, so you got to that one. And another question about chronic illness. So if I can't fast due to a chronic illness, what do I do instead?
We call it fidya. So what you're going to have to do is pay about $10 per day. If the month is 29 days, $290, right? And then you also pay sadaqat al-fitr, which is about $10. So you have to pay $300, right? Some of them say zakat al-fitr now is 15. It all goes based on the cost of goods. So if you want to say 15, so that's how you'd estimate it. Wallahu alam.
Barakallahu feek.
Either way is fine. You could either do day by day or just pay it for the whole month, one shot. Pay what?
Like, can you pay for someone else's fast?
For the one who passed away? Oh, okay. So he missed a lot of days? Yeah, you could pay the fidya for them. Yes. Not you could, you must. Yes. Yes, you have to. Jazakallah khair. Can you hear him?
Yeah, do you have to feed the person yourself, or can you give the money to an institution? Or
Yeah, no, you could give them money. Yeah, you don't have to feed them directly. It's fine. Historically, they used to give grains, right? Some people still give grains in some countries. It goes according to the staple goods. What are the staple goods in each country? It's going to be different. Some places, the staple good would be rice. Other places would be flour, wheat, barley, dates for some places. What is considered a staple good? A staple good is these are basic things that people live off of. If you want to go take a few pounds of barley and look somewhere in Patterson for someone to take it from you, by all means, go do it. But it's going to be pretty hard. Yani. I don't know if they'll take it from you. So just give the money and, ريح دماغك والله أعلم. So they don't have enough for, so by the way, when we say have money, we don't mean that they have enough for zakah. They have enough for their day, for a single day. If you were to assume that there's someone here who does not even have enough for today, then in this case, they're not going to have to do it until later on if they get the money. But that's going to be pretty hard to find someone who doesn't have enough food just for today, right? So someone, technically they say about zakat al-fitr, someone might give zakat al-fitr and still be deserving of it. You get it? So they might give and they might take it. They might be deserving of it as well. But I still have to do that act of giving it. Why? Because it's tuhra lis-sa'im. It's a cleansing for the fast. Wallahu alam.
Can I take my asthma pump during fast?
Yeah. So about the pump, if it's the type of pump that just pumps air, the air, I don't know what they call it, suppressant or.
I mean, there's albuterol, right? That's a medicine.
No, not medicine.
Oh,
just the airs for someone to be able to breathe. If it's a type of pump that just pumps air, of course it's not going to break your fast. But if it pumps chemicals, then there's a difference of opinion about this. One opinion, which is a standard opinion in the past, they say it would break your fast. Why? Because it gets to the throat. And this is jawf. So it's going to break your fast even if it doesn't go down to your stomach, right? So, and the other opinion, which is a modern opinion, it says it would not break it because these chemicals evaporate or remain in the throat. They remain local in the throat and they don't go down. So there's both approaches. Someone who needs to use their inhaler, according to one opinion, they would be considered among the chronically ill. So in this case, they would not need to fast. Unless this happens in certain times of the years rather than others. Like say if someone doesn't really need their inhaler as much in the middle of winter, we're going to say, okay, you can't fast now because it's in the spring, but you'll need to do qada in the winter. But if they need it all year round, then according to this opinion, that's it, they don't need to fast and they pay fidya. The other opinion says, no, take your inhaler, continue fasting. Alhamdulillah that we have different opinions. Because some people are going to want an easier approach and say, okay, Allah has excused me from fasting and I'm just going to pay the fidya. And other people are going to say, no, I want to feel the Ramadan experience, so I'm going to fast. So alhamdulillah, we have both opinions. Well, I personally, alhamdulillah, I don't have to take an inhaler. But the one I'm more inclined towards is to say that it breaks the fast. Because the throat is a jawf. Just as if I was to say, if food or something else was to reach as soon as it reaches the throat, it'll break the fast. What I'm more inclined towards, say it breaks the fast. And this person either do qada of it at another time in the year, or khalas, a'adharak Allahu min as-siyam, and just give fidya and you're excused. Wallah, that's what I'm more inclined towards. Alaikum as-salam wa rahmatullah. Feeding? So the ones who take the fidya are the ones who take zakah. So the same requirements for zakah are the same requirements for fidya. Among these requirements is it's a special charity for Muslims only. The general sadaqah, you could give it to anybody, Muslim or non-Muslim. Zakah or fidya need to go to specific causes, right? So you need to make sure that it's going towards feeding the needy. If you want to feed them directly, technically, technically you should not need to do this. But if you would give them the grains so they'll feed themselves on their own, that's what you should do. Muslim, just like you do for zakah. Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah. أهلا وسهلا. جزاك الله خير. There was something else. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد. All right, is there any other questions?
I mean, we talked about injections. The question was about blood work, taking blood out.
No issue at all.
Okay. I'm just trying to get to the smaller ones so we can get through them quicker, and then we'll try to get back to the bigger ones. I don't know if your thought came back to you. It was about, I guess, how to give the zakat.
There's a lot of other issues that people often ask that break the fast. Like we said, eye drops mostly say no. Eardrops, there's a split, both opinions. But many are inclined to say no because technically this is not an open passageway into the body. So many scholars say eardrops, okay, no problem. Nose drops, it's going to break your fast. What about brushing my teeth while I'm fasting? Is it going to break my fast? No, unless you swallow something. Again, what you don't want to do is become a spit monster during Ramadan. You guys know what spit monsters are? You guys know what spit monsters are? I like making up words, right? So spit monsters are people, they spit like 20, 30, 40 times a day when they're fasting. They're like the ones who, all right, I just made wudu, so I'm going to go spit 10 times to make sure that no water went down. And then I'm going to leave the bathroom and I'm going to run back and spit a little bit more because I'm afraid. Some people are afraid to swallow their own saliva. You're supposed to remain with no saliva, Kamat, when you're fasting? No, you don't need to. Does saliva break your fast? Of course not. It's not going to break your fast. You don't need to go to an excessive limit to do taklif of yourself with, or to burden yourself with something that Allah didn't put on your shoulders. So you don't need to do the excessive spitting. That's not going to break your fast. Now, you might feel an aroma, like you just did mouthwash during suhoor. You might stay feeling an aroma in your mouth, or I guess the sensation, but there's nothing there. So is that going to break your fast? No, it's not. It's just a sensation from the mint that was in your mouth. So that's fine. There's no problem with this. As long as you just confirm that like there's no chicken stuck between your teeth or something, you're good.
This one, this is the top question. If you are still playing games even after Salah starts, does that count as shirk? I don't know if they like this just as a joke.
What is it?
If you're still playing games, I'm guessing video games, try to piece it together here, even after Salah starts, does that count as shirk? I don't think this is a Ramadan question, maybe it's a Salah in general. Sounds like a parent maybe.
يعني شرك أصغر maybe. No, not shirk. That'd be riyā. No, it's not. يعني, but hey, look, one of the Salaf, he said, when I say Allahu Akbar, he would get a little pale, he would get nervous. He said, when I say Allahu Akbar, I'm afraid of saying it with my tongue and then going against it with my heart, because something else would be bigger in my heart than Allah. So I just need to remind myself of this, make sure that I'm not allowing things to distract me away. Imagine this, like, some people, they like to follow with the mushaf during Taraweeh. So they'll use their phone. And, everyone's a witness over themselves. What are you going to do if a WhatsApp notification comes, or a message notification, or a Facebook. I'm afraid that you may be tempted to click because it's an addiction. Click. I can't imagine someone reading their WhatsApp message while we're in Taraweeh. If you're gonna hold your phone, put it on airplane mode. That'd be shirk. No, just joking.
Assalamu alaikum. If a woman is going through perimenopause or has unpredictable cycles, does she still fast and pray during these times?
So the woman and fasting, it's a complicated thing, especially if there's some irregularities in the monthly cycle. Now, what should you do? Basically, if a woman sees the menstrual blood at any point during the day, then she cannot continue the fast. That fast is going to need to be made up. But now, what if she gets it on one day and doesn't get it on another day, and then gets it on the third day? If it's every other day, what do I do with the day where there's no blood? So there's two opinions by the scholars. The easier opinion is to take qawl al-laqt, which means when I don't see blood, that means I fast. Even if it ends up coming back again tomorrow. And especially this is for the one with irregular bleeding. It becomes very complicated with that. So my answer to this, keep it simple. If you see blood, don't fast or stop fasting. And if you don't see blood and you finish the day, then you're good, even if it comes back again the next day. Wallahu
alam. We're a little bit past 9 here, but maybe we'll take one more question, an overarching question. How should you structure your day if you're working during Ramadan? So it goes back full circle to how we talked about, balancing everything. So say I work, how can I structure my day? What's a practical, easy way to, get tactical? How do I do it end to end?
Look, there's certain moments during your fast, during Ramadan, you don't want to miss out on. Certain moments, you definitely don't want to miss out on them. Prioritize them over everything else. What are those moments? Who can tell me one moment that you definitely, no matter who you are and what you're doing, you don't want to miss out on it? That's one of them. Dua when you break your fast. Because لِلصَّائِمِ دَعْوَةٌ مُسْتَجَابَةٌ عِنْدَ فِطْرِهِ. When you break your fast, you have a prayer that's answered. So make sure you capitalize on that every day. Even if you're in the middle of work, you know what? It doesn't take something grand. I'm just going to take a minute, 2 minutes, wherever I am, I'm going to focus. And I'm going to make dua to Allah. Whatever problem I'm going through in my life, personal or otherwise, I'm going to make a lot of dua. Oh Allah, help me figure this out. Oh Allah, give me a solution to this. Oh Allah, guide me in this. I'm going to do that every day. Every day at fitr, don't wait. I know that could be tempting, especially if you're at home and you smell some nice smells coming from the kitchen and you just want to hover over the food and you want to go in and out. Don't waste those minutes right before iftar. And you know what? The best thing you could get yourself used to are good habits that you could continue after Ramadan. So one of those is, let me break my fast on something small and then pray. I know sometimes when you have a big feast waiting for you, like a maqluba or a mansaf or mash'arif, the tempting, or couscous, the tempting thing is, you know what? It's iftar time. I'm just going to unload and eat it all right now. But let me get myself used to it. I'm going to pray maghrib as soon as the time comes in. This is a good habit. It's a good habit to start this. Another good habit to focus on is the fara'id. Brothers and sisters, pay attention to this. What do you get more reward for, the fard or the nafila? Of course, fard. No way would nafila ever come close to fard. The worst thing that you could possibly do is allow for a contradiction to happen. I'm going to attend all of the taraweehs and all of the nawafil, and then I'm going to miss the fard in the masjid. Like if I miss fajr in the masjid. No, let me prioritize fard. That's the number 2. Number 3, the time that you want to prioritize is waqt al-sahar, We know outside of Ramadan, the last third of the night is the absolute best. So during Ramadan, it's even most coveted. So if I could get myself used to taking advantage of the early hours every single day, then this is going to be a good Ramadan. These are three things I would advise you. Iftar time, fard, and the time right before Fajr. Commit to these three. If you could do anything else, khair wa barakah.
Barakallah feek, Shaykhna. With that, I think we'll close, inshallah. And is next week going to be a similar topic, or will that be TBD? What do you think?
It's going to be something about Ramadan, but we'll figure it out.
Inshallah. So Shaykh Osamah confirmed he will be here next week, guys.
Yeah, I'll be, inshallah, looking
Also,
forward
there
to it.
was one question about someone asked, my friends don't want to come to Friday Forum. Why don't they want to come to Friday Forum? You know, it's a beautiful city, it's a beautiful gathering. You get to see a bunch of people, all kinds of ages. We've started this recently after Ramadan, I think. Right?
Wait, what was the question?
The question was, my friends don't want to come to Friday Forum. And
Doesn't sound like a question.
and how do I help them come to Friday Forum?
How do I help them come? Oh, okay.
Well, I don't know if it was a question. I added that part, but tell your friends to come. Tell your parents to come. It's about suhbah. It's about ilm. It's about learning. It's about companionship. I think it brings a beautiful aura.
Hey, you know what? Just to say something to that. Look, guys, I think that, in the age of social media and everything being virtual, there's something that every person who experiences quality relationships understands. No matter how high tech we get, there's nothing that could ever do away with the need for a human experience. A healthy, positive human experience. Is there ever going to come a time when, we don't need masajid anymore, let's all just be virtual? No, that's not going to happen. And we should never want that. We need this type of space where we could actually, let me learn how to talk. People are coming out with all kinds of anti-social behaviors and inability to actually talk to other human beings because what? Non-stop. Brains are fried. Imagine if someone took someone's brain and put it in the microwave and put it on 5 minutes, what's going to happen to that brain? That's what happens to a lot of people's brains because constantly, boop, 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 boop. If you were to check the screen time, probably 50 hours a week, the screen time's on for a lot of people. That's so destructive. I need good human experiences and interactions with people. Wallah, and this is the type of setting where you could find that. You want to say something? Okay. Absolutely. Yeah. Jazakallah khair. Allah barik feek. Great to see you guys, and inshallah, hopefully make dua for me. Hopefully my throat will be better next week. Assalamu alaikum.